Welcome high school and college students from across the Rocky Mountain region to this final installment of our spring week-long workshop of Lunch and Learns. Today we have a very special guest joining us from Santa Fe, New Mexico. He's worn many hats in the TV world and the film world. We have Milton Riess here to talk about some film talk and TV talk, the differences between the two, what you need to know about a call sheet and safety on set. He's got a ton of great stuff ahead, so let's get right to it. Milton, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's always a pleasure, actually. This is great. This is, I guess, my second time here, and this is a real privilege to be able to talk with a lot of people about film and but mostly with people that are just interested in film and hopefully getting into film and how to get into film. And I think that's probably the biggest question that most people will always have is, how do I get into film? Because it's so vast. It's huge. It's a different language. Most people in this country are not born into the film industry. They fall in love with it, and usually from a really early age. I know when I was about 8 years old is when I really first started getting into film and television, and I remember writing my first screenplay. Let me rephrase that. I started my first screenplay when I was about 8 years old, and I still have the few pages I wrote, and I look at them every now and again. I'll stick them on my wall. It just is sort of just to re-inspire me or make me laugh, or in some cases, I suppose, make me throw up because it really wasn't very good. But it's something that we all have to do, and we all have these skills that we want to do. And one of the biggest things about film that people don't realize, film and television, is that the film and television industry needs everybody. I mean, from accounting to welders. I don't care. If you're a culinary arts individual, if you love cooking, there's a place for you in film. Auto mechanics, accountants, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to be an accountant? Everybody. But it has a place for everybody in the film industry. So I want to talk a little bit about a couple things today. One is the differences between film and television, and there are. And then also I want to jump into the things you should know before your first day of film or first day of work on film, on a film. And there's a lot to learn. I'm not going to pull punches. You just don't walk into it and figure it out on the spot. You need to learn a lot. It's not that you won't succeed or if you don't know a lot, but it will help you succeed if you know a lot. And much of this information, probably most of it, if not all of it, is online somewhere. And so I highly recommend anybody who's really interested in the down and dirty, the trenches, getting your feet wet. Look online. You can find out pretty much anything. There's documentaries out there, great documentaries that will give you really a good insight into what you need to do to get into your craft. And again, if you want to get into special effects or visual effects, if you want to get into acting, if you want to get into writing or directing or producing, help you, please, God help you if you want to get into producing, because you're going to need all the help you can get. If you want to get into camera work, production design work, all of that is online somewhere. Or if you still, get these Blu-rays or DVDs, they're behind the scenes documentaries are brilliant because they really help let you see what other people are doing on a massive level. Oh my heavens. And that's how you learn. That's how you get inspired. So let's talk a little bit about the differences of film and television. And to start with, I guess there's really three mediums that you need to be aware of when you're talking about the basic differences of the mediums. There's theater, there's film, and there's TV. Theater is really what's called an actor's medium. The actors are in charge. The actors, yes, there's a director, yes, there's producers, yes, there's a venue, there's everything that's in television and in film. But when it comes right down to it, theater is a piece or a project that's done from beginning to end with no breaks. And there's not a lot of there's no cutting what goes on. It's really in the actor's hands. Once a play goes up, once it opens, the director rarely shows up at all. Maybe the music director might show up if it's a musical, but the director rarely shows up after that. So really, that's why it's called an actor's medium. They really are in charge. Film, on the other hand, is a director's medium. And it's a medium that the director is in charge of the storytelling. Yes, there are producers. Yes, there are most certainly actors. There's a vast crew. There's many venues, many locations that are filmed in, sound stages or actual locations. But it really is the director's vision. And the director will always be really in charge of that storytelling. And then there's the TV part of it, the television. And television is generally what's called a producer's medium. And a producer's medium, by that I mean, it really is the producer, and there are many producers in television that are in charge of that story, because you're telling, especially in episodic television, you're telling many stories over the course of maybe 23, 24 episodes a season, 5, 6, 7, 10 seasons if you're lucky. It would be virtually impossible for one director to direct every episode, because you're going to be shooting an episode. You may be shooting an episode and have 7 days or 6 days to shoot an episode, a couple of days for pickups, and then you start up again. Well, in television, they generally will checkerboard directors, where you have director 1 doing episode 1, director 2, episode 2, director 3, episode 3, director 4, episode 4, then director 1, episode 5, director 2, episode 6. So you're leapfrogging, because it's virtually impossible for one director to do everything. And that's why there are so many producers on television, from the actual showrunners, which I'll get to in a bit, which again, a showrunner is really what the name implies. They run the show. They used to be called the lead writer, or head writer, but now they've taken on the term of a showrunner, and they've become stars themselves in many instances, because a showrunner, J.J. Abrams, for instance, is a great example. He started out as a director, as a writer. He started out then producing, and then he just worked his way up the ranks, and now he puts his name on anything, and it's going to be a success, almost. But in television, there's also a kind of a weird paradox when you're talking about who's really in charge. There's an old saying that in the first, and this is specifically on episodic television, well, actually reality TV as well, which again, reality is not reality TV. There's very little reality there, but it's, trust me, I've worked on 200 of them. And but there's a really interesting paradox where the first year, the showrunner is in charge. The second year, it's equal billing who's in charge. The actors are in charge and the showrunner's in charge. Third year plus, the actors, they're in charge. You work for them. And why is that? Well, it's simple, really, because it's their face that's on the screen. They are the brand of what that TV show is. And so when you're talking about a show that is in its first season, everybody's just still trying to find where their place is, let alone whether it's going to be a success or not. We don't even know that, but we don't even know where our place is. Am I an important actor? Am I an important producer? We don't know. We're just kind of feeling it out. The second season rolls around and it gets a little bit more clear, but yet there's still equal billing and equal footing for everybody. And then third season onward, producer, directors, all of those. But when it comes to the actors, they're right here, simply because, like I said, they are the branding of your show. Without a good brand, your show will fail. It is that simple. And that's why it's important to understand that going in. Now, if we back up to the film portion, unless we're talking about a franchise film like the Marvel movies or the Batman series or whatever, it's really a one-off. And by that, I mean, it's a standalone project, beginning, middle, end, that's it. It's over with. And so really, while the actors are critical for the same reason, they are your brand, they make their residuals. So they may be out of the picture, so to speak, but they're not going to go broke. But it's something that it's a one-off. So you don't have the I guess the tier stepping that you would in television. So that's kind of how you would need to look at the three elements. You got theater, which is, again, we all start without theater, we wouldn't have film or television. So you've got the theater, which is an actor's medium. You've got film, which is the director's medium. And then you've got television, again, which is the producer's medium, with the actors coming right up and stepping on everybody. So really, you have to kind of look at it like that before you even get into any one of these industries. Um, some of the differences within television and film are what I kind of got into a little bit, which is the story. Well, first off, stories in general. Stories in general for television, episodic television specifically, it's a much better way to tell a story because you have a long period of time. You have hours, sometimes, I mean, literally hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of television to tell your story. And that's where I ended up, was in television, because that's where I chose to be, because I love storytelling. I mean, as you can tell, you can't get me to shut up, but so it's the storytelling that allows television to really, I think, be number one, especially in this world of streaming services now. And by television, I don't mean the literal television that we had even half a dozen years ago, but I mean episodic streaming or episodic distribution. In film or in movies, it would be virtually impossible to tell these long tales. And again, I think I mentioned the other class, can you imagine Game of Thrones told in 2 hours? It would be impossible. You just could not do it. But when you're talking about 8 seasons, 2.5 hours per episode, 10 episodes, how many hours is that? That's 25 episodes or 25 hours per season of story. That's a lot. And so that's where for me, that's where the excitement is you can really tell a great tale over a long period of time. And again, nothing against films. I mean, but it's just a different animal. So some of the differences that you have in film you have pre-production and production, and a lot of the changes or the differences between film and television are in the pre-production phase. As I mentioned, the showrunner is a complete invention of television. You don't have a showrunner in the movie industry. You don't need it. In television, though, you need to have the person who is really ultimately responsible. Now, in film, you have the executive producer and the producer's teams that do that. But in television, you have the producers, and there are many producers. There are there's showrunner, executive producers, co-executive producers, there's supervising producers, there's co-producers, not co-executive, but co-producers. There's oh my God, there's show producers. There's, you name it, they're there. I mean, it's everybody. And again, that's why if you look at the credits for television, the producers are vast. Directors, obviously, but again, it's generally a new director every episode, or I should say a different director every episode. Also a difference is in the writers, because there's a lot of television, film doesn't just have one writer, although there are times like that it does. But in TV, you'll have what are called writers' rooms, and that's where it's almost literally like that. It's just a big room with a lot of writers in and stories being told. You have teams of writers that work together. Sometimes you have independent writers that work together or work by themselves. You have individual directors that come into play there that say, well, you'll be directing episode 7. So the director may want to work with the writers who are writing episode 7. So you have not just 1 or 2 writers, but you may have 15 writers, and then you have assistant writers, and you have writers, researchers. You have, I mean, again, the list goes on and on and on and on. When we switch to the production part of both film and television, it pretty much stays the same. You're going to have almost down the line the same type of positions. There are a couple of name changes, but it's not going to be that different. from one to another. For instance, like in film, lighting, well, in television, you will often have what's called a lighting director, but in film, they're called gaffers. Same job, just different names. You may have in film, you'll have a cinematographer, but in television, you may still be called a videographer. Again, that's kind of getting rarer and rarer, but it still exists. You have quite a few other subtle changes, but for the most part, it's right down the line. So the major changes or differences, pardon me, are really in the pre-production phase of both television and film. One of the key positions, though, that either one brings in early on, and often before the director, is the production designer. And they are probably the one position that is most responsible for the look of a project. And by look, I mean wardrobe, settings, color scheme, how the lighting is to look. Is it mostly done in is the color palette different? Is it shot? I mean, all of the visual components that go into a story are usually designed by the production designer. If you have an artistic bend and a really creative note, that's where you should possibly push yourself towards, because no great film or TV series can exist without a production designer, because that is their job to make the look of the film or TV show a great look. And again, if people are interested in looking at these different professions, as I mentioned, look at the documentaries, the behind the scenes or BTS documentaries that are on most Blu-ray and DVDs. I'm old school. Yes, I have a DVD player. I did finally get rid of my VHS deck, but but YouTube has most of these out there, but even YouTube doesn't exactly have the quality that you might want to see. So if you're an educator out there, I highly recommend going to your school library, picking up Blu-ray and DVDs of some great films, taking a look at the behind the scenes and the special features. It'll blow your students' socks off, trust me. It'll answer questions that you didn't even know they didn't even know they had. And it will also get them to raise questions to you as an educator that it really speaking for myself, I get blindsided by some amazing questions. And it's like, okay, do I lie or do I tell them I don't know? And, the truth is you tell them you don't know, and then you get back a week later and say, okay, this is what I meant. But it's really I think a lot can be learned from just the support material that goes into it. One documentary that I really recommend anybody and everybody watch if they're interested in television is a documentary called Showrunners. It's about a 2-hour-long documentary, hour and 3/4, something like that. I think it's on Netflix, but it really is something very powerful, and it takes you into the world of producing television. And it doesn't pull punches at much. I mean, it does kind of gloss over a few things, but it really gets into the heart of it. It gets into the stress. It gets into the shows that are canceled, and they all do. Every show gets canceled. People get fired. People get hired. People have lives, and they just quit. It's all part of the profession, and it lets you see that up close and personal. It's a bit emotional at times. It's very funny at other times. It's interesting all of the time. So that is a one show I would recommend completely. Again, I think it's on Netflix. It used to be. Also, just the Game of Thrones documentaries, can't go wrong with it. And they focus so much on virtually every craft outside of the actors, which is a rarity. So that's kind of it for some of the differences in the terms. Do the research yourself. You'll be constantly surprised, and the more you know, the better it is, without a doubt. That's kind of a nice segue into the next part, which is what you should know before your first day on set. A lot. I mean, a whole lot. It's really important to do your research. You don't get hired, and if you get hired on a project, you'll probably start as a production assistant, a PA. And most PAs are not hired, they don't want a PA to come on and learn on the job. In fact, if you do, that's a great way not to come back. And it's something that you need to know a lot. And luckily, probably most of you already know a lot about it. You just don't realize it. There's no one great tool about what a PA should learn or know. I'm going to go through a few things right now, but some of them is the terminology that's used on set. And as I mentioned, it's a different language completely. I mean, and the more you know, the better. There's also call sheets, how to read a call sheet, even just the basic structure of a call sheet. And a call sheet is given out the day before, or the night before, or a few hours sometimes before, and it just lets the crew know who is supposed to be on set and when. Cast members, who is on set and when. You have to learn how to read it, and in many instances, production assistants will ultimately be filling these out because it's handled by the production or the assistant directing department. And assistant director being first assistant, second assistant, second assistant, so on and so forth. The production report is also something you need to be aware of, and it's what has happened during the course of the day. So while a call sheet is what we hope to get done, the production report is what we actually got done. And it's different. And sometimes it's not dramatically different. Other times it's very different because there's a problem that occurred or whatever. And the unit production manager and line producers, they really love to know where we're at. It lets them know if we're over budget or if we're behind schedule. Also, there's on-set protocol and on-set etiquette. That's something that it's not just something to be told in a couple of minutes. It's something you need to learn, though. Is who you talk to, the language you use, what's etiquette on walkie-talkie, what are the codes you use, what are the channels that you use on a walkie-talkie. And then lastly, I'm going to touch again, just in a couple of minutes, unfortunately, about the importance of on-set safety, because that is a critical component. That, again, here at Santa Fe Community College, we're one of the few schools, I think, in the country that actually have onset safety as part of our curriculum. One of the students' learning outcomes when they come here is that they will be taking up to 5 weeks of onset safety. Why is that important? Because it means your life, or it potentially means a life. When you're asking a crew to work 15, 16-hour days for 6-day weeks, sometimes 7 for 10, 12, 14 weeks, things happen and again, you can't, it's just sometimes people get tired, they get clumsy, they just start to forget things because the human body, while it's an amazing tool, it gets worn down after a certain point. And so onset safety is one of the most critical parts of the equation to keep everybody safe. Somebody always says, well, whose job is to keep people safe? It's everybody's job. People say, well, isn't onset safety common sense? There's nothing common about common sense, because my version of common sense is completely different than yours, or yours, or yours, or yours. It doesn't equal out. So the job of a instructor, at least as far as I'm concerned, and again, I don't mean to step on anybody's toes at all, but as far as I'm concerned, the job of a production instructor is to kind of equally, just get everybody on the same page when it comes to onset safety. And there's plenty of information out there. Most of the trade unions have published incredible resources for people. And anybody out there that would like to learn, or if you'd like me to email you some of our documents or some of our production handbooks, student handbooks that we give out, safety handbooks, I'd happily do it, because it's more important. It's not about we do this and you don't. No, everybody should do this. So let me help you out if I can. Let me back up just a bit and start going through some of the terms that are used on set. And again, there's hundreds of them, thousands of them really, but these are just some of the ones you should learn what they are. A C-47. What is a C-47? Well, it's a clothespin. And a clothespin, it's also a plane in World War II, but that's not what we're talking about. But a clothespin is probably one of the most important parts of the equation. Why? Because it's versatile. Wardrobe uses it not to hang up clothes, but to keep things so that it keeps it tight so everybody looks thin and handsome. It's used by the lighting department to hook gels onto gel frames. It's used to keep things just out of the way. It's like strings. It's the most versatile tool in the world. before, as a production assistant, before you go on set, go to a drugstore, buy a bag of clothespins, have them on you, and you will be a hero. Trust me, you will be a hero. What is a slate? Well, a slate is the clapper. It's I've got one somewhere around here. Well, I can't reach it right now, but it's basically what everybody's seen them. It's just what marks the scene and then syncs up the sound. Every day on set, you will use it, see it used. It has all these numbers on that you should understand. Do some research on it because it's really critical. A stinger, what is a stinger? A stinger is an extension cord. Now, the thing about film industry is it's all about slang. Everything has a different name, even down to New York and LA. LA has different terms for the same piece of equipment than what New York does. It's like East and West Coast rap. It's the same thing except different. So a stinger is nothing more than an extension cord. But when you think about it, if an extension cord is frayed at the edge, has a little bit of a tear in the insulation, you get stung, hence a stinger. What is 10-1, 10-2? Next, no kidding. What 10-1 is, well, is when you have to use the bathroom. And again, you figure it out. And it's one of those things that you have to always be communicating with people, because if you just disappear to use the bathroom on set, they call out your name, you're not there, you may be fired. So let your HOD, HOD is what is short for head of department. And so let your HOD know that you have to, 10-1, 10-2, whatever. It's cool, everybody has to. Just let the communications system succeed. Stand-in. Everybody knows what a stand-in is, right? Stand-in is an individual who kind of vaguely bears a resemblance to somebody, one of the actors, to stand in for blocking, lighting, sometimes wardrobe. They bear a striking resemblance, may have roughly the same height, maybe the same, oh God, they may have even the same hairstyle. Like for instance, Ed Harris might need somebody like me. But, and if you're listening, I'm available. A stand-in is you'll hear that term thrown around. A lot of times PAs are the ones that go invite a stand-in to set. And notice I said invite. You don't tell people to get to set, you invite them to set. It's something that is just decorum. MOS. Anybody know what MOS is? MOS is mit out sound, or without sound, German for without sound. It's when you're filming a beautiful sunset. Well, you don't really need sound on set, because what is the sound that the sun makes when it is setting? Yeah, you don't need it sometimes. So MOS, and you'll see that. There's a very specific way to slate MOS. Everybody knows what a wrap is. It's not a piece of clothing. It is actually when the day is over with. Everybody looks for that, and it's signified by what's the last shot of the day, which is called the martini shot. And not that there's ever any drinking that goes on after set. No. What is a tenor? Well, it's not a singer. It is a 10,000 watt light. What is a second unit? What's second unit? Second unit is the support footage that goes on into a film. It's the explosions, the car chases, the setting of the sun. It's that the support, the images that support, or the scenes that support the primary story, or the first unit, hence first or second unit. As a PA, if you are ever given the chance to work on second unit, raise your hand right away. I'll do it. Why? Because you'll learn so much more, because it's a smaller crew. There's a little bit more crossover. You can actually see up close and personal what the other crafts are doing, and you'll really learn what you want to do, or what you don't want to do. Even more important, I suppose. Screen Actors Guild, SAG. Learn what that is. They are basically the union for the actors, and both television, film has it. It's all under basically the same name right now. Get to know them, because they really, if you're an actor, you'll ultimately want to get into Screen Actors Guild sooner than later. You don't just sign up for it. It's a little bit of a chore, but learn how to. They also regulate a lot of the protocols. This last COVID pandemic, the last one, hopefully the last one, the COVID pandemic is really phenomenal, because SAG, or Screen Actors Guild, came out with what they called the white sheet, which was really the process for safety on set. It was adopted by pretty much every union, and even every school in a lot of regards, took it under advisement and certainly changed their policies to make sure that the student films are done safely. Safety is critical, and the Screen Actors Guild is really behind that. And they really, no, they were in the forefront of it. Cowboy up. Now, what on earth is cowboy up? Well, cowboy up is a stunt term generally, which means basically when somebody's about to fall off a building, their stunt coordinator will usually say, okay, cowboy up. In other words, gut up, or in other words, get ready, prepare yourself. And you'll hear terms like this thrown around. So you want to understand where it comes from and how it's used and how it's utilized. Dirt. What is dirt? Well, dirt is dirt. And it's like, what do I mean by that? Dirt is a sandbag. A sandbag is one of the most used safety pieces of equipment on set. It's a sandbag that weighs about 20 pounds or 30 pounds, 35 pounds, I think, either one. And then they have smaller ones as well. But they're used to create ballast or to hold down pieces of equipment, from lighting stands to set pieces, to keep things from falling over and actually injuring somebody. You'll hear people call for dirt, sandbags, a lot of other names. Some of them I can't repeat here. And you just, and so you understand that that's what they're looking for when you hear it called out. An AC. What's an AC? Well, it's an assistant camera. It's not an air conditioning unit. Assistant camera has several different kinds. There's a first, there's a second, and there's support units. Learn what they are. An AD, assistant director. Assistant director is a critical job. It's the hardest job on set, without a doubt. A lot of times the television, they might be called a floor director, they might be called a production manager, but an assistant director on film, and by that I mean the first AC or first AD, is ultimately responsible for everything that goes on set. Safety and speed of operation. Now that is a problem in some cases, because safety and the speed of operation sometimes go in opposite directions. So it takes a very special kind of person to be able to balance, okay, push your crew along, but be safe. Not everybody can do that job. And ultimately, on any set, the immediate person responsible for safety is the AD, the first AD. There's a second AD, which is basically their support mechanism offset. And then there's like the second seconds and things like that. Do the research, look into them. Everybody should know what a dolly is. And if they don't, learn it. It's a piece of equipment that is on wheels of some sort, and then there's many different varieties. But learn how to learn them. If you are interested in using them, you will, and you are good at it, you will work for the rest of your life. I guarantee it. First unit, we kind of covered a little bit. Sticks. What are sticks? Simple, tripods. There's also a couple other terms, but generally when somebody's referring to sticks, they're saying that where the sticks, they're looking for the tripod. OTF. Now, OTF is an interesting term that you will hopefully, in one regard, you hear it, but in another regard, I hope you never hear it. And OTF in television, and it's mostly like reality TV, is what's called an on-the-fly interview, OTF, on the fly. And where it's where the director will say, okay, get a response from what just happened on the guy with the red t-shirt. So camera over, red t-shirt. Yeah, what do you think just happened? What's your opinion about the house that just fell down? Blah, blah, blah. That is an OTF, an on-the-fly interview. It may not be used, it may be used. But in film, they don't really use that. If you hear the word OTF there, it's not a good thing. It means off the film. In other words, it means you've been fired. So, so again, those are two exactly the same terms, but completely different meanings. Again, I could go on all day about the different terms that are used in film and on set of any kind, film or television. I can't because we don't have that much time. But do the research. There's many, I mean, some of them are hilarious, the terms, some of them are like, that's offensive. Others are just like, okay, I get it. Learn them. You'll hear them. Learn what they mean. One of the fun things I do the beginning of every term, I always give this absurd test of film terminology to my students, and every one of them fails. It is so much fun. Oh my God, to see the look on their face when everybody fails this test. But then I give the same test at the end of the term and they all ace it. It's a marker to see what they learn, what they know, and then what they learn. And it keeps the interest going as well because I can make fun of them. I missed that. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about call sheets. Call sheets, let me see if I can pull one up real quick. It'll take me just a second, my apology. I've got way too many windows open. Let this be a lesson to you. Okay, and let me share screen. Okay, so I hope this can be seen.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, great. So this is a call sheet. This is from a movie, actual film here that was shot in New Mexico. It's called Crazy Heart. And all of the information that you see on the call sheet, the front page, the second page, and the third page are critical to the safe and the operation of a day-by-day shooting schedule. So let's take a look at this. And if you can follow my cursor, it's basically, okay, you got all the information you need to know. The date, when it's going to be filmed. This is the day of, so 12 days of 25, or 12 days of 25 shooting days. What time sunrise and sunset is, a very critical part of the equation, when breakfast is served. Because it also tells you something else, that while your crew call may be 6:30, you get there at 5:30. Why is that? Because if you are early, you are on time. If you are on time, you are late. And if you are late, you are fired. So again, always take a look at what this number is, not necessarily this one, but this one, and that is the time you should be on set. That's the time when you can relax, you can have coffee, you can wake yourself up a little bit, get to know some of the other crew members, because when this time period comes around, this is when you are on your truck. This is when you are behind your desk. This is when you are working with whatever department you're working with. This is not when you show up. This is when you start work. Also, when you are working in film, this is one of the safety aspects of it. And just in case we run out of time, I want to cover this, is dress accordingly. If you do no open-toed shoes, no soft-soled shoes, Converse tennis shoes are not on set, because it's a very dangerous place. And again, open-toed shoes, Converse, you don't necessarily need steel-toed shoes, but just good durable shoes. You need three types of gloves. And again, you need these really wonderful type of gloves, which I just happen to have here, show and tell, I guess. Oh, I can't see it, so I'm not sharing it. I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so then over here you have the directors, you have the producers. Who are they? Also all the different kinds of producers. In this case, Jeff Bridges was an executive producer. The UPM is really the person who's in charge of the financing and the organization on a day-by-day or on a production scale, on a production level, and then a day-by-day level as well. Here you have the set, what we're going to be filming, hopefully filming during the course of this day. It's the scene numbers. And again, scene 67, 68, 58, 57, 59, and 60. It tells what it is, exterior field, a brief description of what goes on to it, what cast members are there, and you see numbers here, not names, because down here you have the names. And so you have, so cast number 1, okay, that's Jeff Bridges. Cast number 2, cast number 3, so on and so forth. Cast number 100, that's an interesting thing, because now we're starting to get into the stunt world. They have their own separate number system. So while 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth are your cast members with speaking roles, and bear in mind, if they utter even one sentence or one word, they are a cast member and not an extra. And then you've got your stunt world, which is the stunt coordinators, which is always 100, and then 101 are the actual stunt performers. So this is how you see who's going to be on set for any particular stunt, day or night. And again, this is not when you're shooting it, but what's in the when the scene is supposed to take place during the story. And then the pages. Now this is not like page 3 through page 8. This is 3/8 of a page. That's how long the scene is. is 3/8 of a page. And then again, this is the location where we're going to be. You know, it's like 42-minute travel from the base camp. And then it's Galliseo Rodeo Grounds, Highway 40. This is just all the information about what we're shooting. Here are the cast, the cast number, which again corresponds to this number. You've got the cast name, Jeff Bridges, you know, everybody else. Then you've got the character they're playing. You got these weird abbreviations. And this W, for instance, stands for wardrobe. So their wardrobe call is whatever. And then here, TR means travel. So this person is actually traveling from LA to Albuquerque and then to set. So this means that this person is TR'd or traveling. This is, I forget what the S stands for. It's, you know, I can't remember what it is. You'll have to look it up. But again, all of these initials have that. It's pretty, have reasons for being. 5:12 a.m. pickup. They're picked up at the hotel. To be in wardrobe again at 6 a.m. To be on set by 7:15 a.m. These are just the basic information for what the cast have to go through. Then you've got the stand-ins and atmospheres. Atmosphere are just a term for extra. Then you've got the balloon pilot, because there's a big balloons thing going on. Any drivers, like if there's traffic, and these are not drivers of vans and trucks, but these are picture vehicles. So these are vehicles that are actually in the film, just driving by. They're basically car versions of extras. Then it goes down to what you hope to shoot the next day, and then the next day onward. Next page is the call sheet for the cast or for the crew, which is the producers, even the directors. They all have to know all of this stuff. Transportation, special effects, costume, makeup and hair, location managers, accountants. Yes, we need accountants. Desperately, we need accountants in the film industry. Camera, grip, lighting, all of these have their same report numbers or times. It's like when you report to set or report to your truck at 6:12 a.m. Seems very specific, doesn't it? It has to be. So again, and then this is a map that just shows you where things are, how to get to set generally from the hotels, where the nearest hospital is. And you've also probably seen those big yellow signs that point in really weird directions. Crazy Heart Productions, CHP. Then just follow these so you don't get lost. So really, this is what you should learn to read, and go online. When you can, go online and just look up call sheets, and there's a lot of examples. They really focus a lot of attention onto getting the information to you. Learn how to read it. Even as a student film, start using call sheets. If you aren't already, start using call sheets. It's really important. We're coming down to 45 minutes or 1:45 my time. 12:45 your time. So I don't want to go too much over the time limit. I'll skip the production report. Production report really is just what it implies. It's what was done. Well, a call sheet is what we hope to get done during the day. A production report is what we did get done for the day. And a lot of the information is the same, but it also includes what are called hot costs, which really are your crew costs, how many hours they've been on set. Your line producer and your accountants need to know day by day, okay, how big your crew was, how many hours were they on set, did they have any forced calls, and by that I mean did they get less than a 10-hour turnaround, did they skip their lunch because they had to work? They need to know that, because then they're paid a bonus. That's a hot cost. It refers to your cast or your crew, your employees, basically, the money spent. Hard costs are the cost for like gasoline, rental of equipment, the building of sets. So there's a difference, hard costs and hot costs. Hard are the costs of rent, of the construction, the building of the set, the production itself. The hot costs are the personnel, if that makes sense. On-set etiquette, there's one thing I really want to focus on before I split for the day. And let me share my screen again. You don't see that, do you? No, you don't, because I'm sure. All right, this part of the equation, ignore if there's a background there. If you're starting out as a PA, these things you had better learn. And because on your first day, these are the things you have to be. You have to be accountable for being on set early. Also, if something happens, it's a mistake. Don't hide it. Be upfront with it. Say, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I didn't know any better, or I picked up that because it was I felt somebody was going to trip over it. Be accountable. Most of the time, and I say most, it's not going to be a big deal. They'll respect you more for actually just being a stand-up person. And if they find out that you hid the fact, then it kind of can be a little harder. Sometimes they might still get a little angry at you, but generally, be upfront, be accountable for your mistakes. If you make something happen, that's a mistake. Ambition, you have to have ambition, in order to get into the film industry, period, because it's long hours, long days, long weeks, long months, long years. It's the best years you'll ever have, though. I mean, I guarantee it. I mean, I've been in the industry 35 years, and I can only count probably on one hand, maybe a couple other fingers, the really bad days I've had. And they were bad. Oh my God, they were bad. But still, they're memorable. Initiative. Take the initiative. When somebody says, hey, I need somebody, you be the ones to say yes. I need somebody, you do it. You raise your hand. I need 3 people. You be one of the 3. Take the initiative. Why? Because you will work. They will look at you and they will say, I remember that person. I remember that person. I remember that person. Let's bring him in tomorrow. Then let's bring him in next week. And all of a sudden, you're there all the time. Timelessness. This has a really interesting meaning. It's basically, and you talk to different people, you'll have different meanings. But for me, it means just be on time. And again, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. And that's really the three things you need to remember. What can you do? Everything. Simple, but don't lie. Learn to do everything. Learn what everything is. Learn how to do it. And if you don't know what something does, ask. But learn. What can you do? You can do anything you want. This is a film industry, and they need people that can do anything and everything. And a lot of people, there's a student once, not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, rather shy student, and said, well, everybody I meet in the film industry is just really out there. I mean, they're like really boisterous. They're really, really just they're just like, they're just not shy, and I'm shy. Is there a place for me? Yes, there is. There's a place for everybody. Is it going to be directing traffic or anything like that? Probably not. Is it going to be working with people behind the scenes? More than likely. There's a lot of stress. If you can't handle stress, there's other jobs that are less stressful. It's called, because there's the production bubble, which is the making of the whatever project it is. There's the secondary bubble, which is the support unit. It's like locations, it's craft service, food. It's the elements that support the production bubble. And then there's off production. And off production, in many instances, is the like what's going to happen tomorrow or next week, because they have to prepare the sets before the production bubble gets to it. And so the stress level a little less. You don't have to deal with a lot of people. So if you're a shy person, you may want to do set painting or production work off production. So there's a place for everybody. Live the craft. What does that mean? It means understand everything you do and everything they do. By they, I mean everybody else. Understand the fun. Tell stories. Learn useless trivia. Don't be afraid to share what your worst film was ever that you watched, the first film you walked out of. Also the favorite films. Don't have to have them as a list, but just be prepared to talk about it, because it's film. People generally love film when they're working on it, and they talk about it. Support and serve the people you work with. Support them and serve them. I don't mean be subservient to them. I mean, serve the needs of the production. And then the employee cycle. Understand that you will start out in one job. You will learn that you don't like this job. Then you can maybe jump over to this job or jump over to another job. So those are really the things that you should learn to be not just a PA or production assistant, but to be any production entity in any craft on any film. I would love to touch on safety again. I don't have time to really go into it. But just understand that a safe set is critical, because people can, accidents happen. There's protocols in place for almost any scenario. The trouble is that you can have all the safety protocols in the world, but if they're not followed, it's all for naught. It doesn't matter. So again, be the person who knows what the safety aspects are. OSHA certification is going to become the norm, certainly here in New Mexico, I believe, probably sooner than later, where people should understand OSHA certification. Or OSHA, for those that are not familiar with it, is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It's a federal agency, but states generally run their own state versions of it. Even though they are under the federal umbrella, they have their own concerns, because most states have different labor laws. So it has to fit into that. Some are a little bit more liberal than others, and I mean that not in the political sense, but just in the sense that it's like some of them are a little more lax than others. Understand what they are. The OSHA certification, they offer two. One is an OSHA 10, which is basically 10 hours and it's a certified 10 hours. Take it, learn it. Here at Santa Fe Community College, we offer it on a regular basis. Students really learn the safe operation, and there's a lot of accidents can take place on set. Be the person who can help spot one and basically solve a problem before it becomes a problem. I think that's what you should be as a crew member. And I've probably gone over my time, so I apologize to the hosts. But anyway, I don't think there are obviously any questions right now, but the hosts have my contact information, or you can just get a hold of me at Santa Fe Community College in Santa Fe, New Mexico, under Milton Riess in the film department, co-chair of the film department here. I'm not shy about helping other people out. If you're interested in getting any of the safety manuals that we put out here at the college, I'll happily send them to you. If you want some other support material, please, I don't care if you're a faculty that's watching these or this, reach out. I mean, we're all part of the same goal, is to get and train the next generation of filmmakers. Because, where do we go from here? It's up to you guys.
Milton, thank you so very much for your time, for all your expertise, for all of that valuable information that you shared with us. There was so much good stuff in there. And thank you to all of the students and the faculty who are watching this. And if you need us, we are here for you. Yep. Reach out to us at rockymountainme.org. We'll get you in touch with any of our guest speakers that we had for our Lunch and Learns this week. And we have representatives where you are. We're across Arizona. We have representatives in New Mexico, Utah, and we also cover Southeast California in our region. So don't be shy, reach out to us. We're here for you, students. Just go to rockymountainme.org. And thank you so much for joining us for our Lunch and Learns this week. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.